The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination, other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media, is strictly prohibited. Welcome back to the Nova Society. Today we're going to be taking on a question about culture wars and their success in politics. Brooklyn's going to bring up a topic. Scott and I are going to be talking about it, and we're going to see if actually bringing up a culture war type of topic really is a loser. So let's listen in. So what's the next one, Brooke? What's the next one you want us to tackle?
It just the whole tenor of doing business in the United States. And as you say, the level of cruelty and the refusal to recognize the humanness of anybody, children who are in need of a trans person's gender identity. I mean, how it's, as you say, the cruelty is just, it seems bottomless.
But this one, at least, you know what, this one I can understand, and the Democrats are shameful in that I really do think that they have backed away from the culture war aspects of this, right? There's so much to focus on. There's so much going on, but they've decided for better or worse, I'm going to say worse, but that they're not going to fight the culture war because too many people in America simply don't care about trans people. They really don't care about LGBTQ at all in any way, shape, or form. They don't, they don't know anybody, or they do know people, but they don't really care. It just that doesn't, they don't want any changes happening in our society. The simplicity of only two genders really appeals to them because they like everything really simple, right? I mean, the most that they can handle is 3 syllables in a chant or something like that, or a bumper sticker. And they're transphobic and homophobic and et cetera. But now may not be the time to fight this culture war. It's a losing issue. If you want to make it an issue, it really shouldn't be an issue. I mean, I think Biden actually got that one right when he had the people on the lawn of the White House and said, look, we just want you to know that we're with you. You're safe. And that we're going to protect you. And that's really, I mean, that was the whole message. You're loved, you're heard, you're understood, you belong here, and nothing more needs to be said. But in Nebraska, they made a big deal about trans people in sports. There were 3 high school students. One of them graduated before any legislative action could be taken to ban transgender athletes from participating in sports. Again, we've talked about this stuff, but these culture war issues are a winner for Republicans and a loser for Democrats, and they always have been. And it's why they focus so much on these culture war issues. Every Christmas, there's a war on Christmas that doesn't exist, but it works for them, so they're going to keep doing it. And this one's going to fall by the wayside where people are worried about, wars in Europe and protecting our borders here and so on. And just the economy in general are the more important things to focus on. Again, I understand all the sides, I think, of this particular issue in a way that I don't understand all of them in some other issues, but it just seems to me that this one's gonna slip for a while until sanity returns to America.
Yeah, and recently on a podcast, Governor Newsom of California, definitely a liberal, came right out, was asked, "Do you think that it's fair that trans men compete in women's sports?" And he said, "No. I don't think so. I don't think it's fair." Whatever his reasoning is, I mean, and Scott's right. It's a culture war that's a loser. If you're going to make your policies and your party be all about fighting a culture war that the United States, who has always been fairly prudish throughout our history. I mean, we've talked about this before. I remember when I was in high school in the 70s, we'd go on PBS and watch Monty Python because they would have little pictures of boobs. And that was like, oh, that was like blasphemy here. I mean, it was some of the things we rated it as X in 1970, 2 and 3, and here we've got Monty Python on PBS showing, little cutouts with boobs onto it, and those. I remember my parents looking and going, "Oh my God, you're looking at boobs." It's like, really? I mean, okay, but because they made it a big deal. Because the Puritans, because those, the Bible thumping Nazis, because, all that made it a big deal. Guess what? When you tell a kid, gee, you shouldn't watch that, you're going to go watch more of it. That's just kind of the way it works. But this idea that, and again, I'm totally in agreement with Scott in the sense that do not fight the culture war. You have policies that have to deal with the majority. The trans community, LGBT community in the United States is an extremely small community in comparison. Yes, and I agree. Biden's coming out saying, "Hey, we hear you. We care about you. We will try to protect you." That's about all that needs to be said. That really is about all that needs to be said. And I think Newsom got it right. Personally, I don't have any opinion on whether or not trans women should be in or trans men should be competing in women's sports, but I could see the argument, because just because you're trans does not change the fact that you're the physical attributes that you had for so long. Yeah, Brooke.
As a point, a puberty blocker prevents the person from going through puberty, which prevents any hormonal changes. And the trans women that I know are very distressed by the way they look because they didn't have the puberty blockers.
All right, so if they put in the thing that says you can't compete in women's sports unless you've had the puberty blocker, okay. I mean, yeah. if we're going to get that into the weeds into it, then maybe the answer should be yes. If you're a trans woman, you should not be trans man. You should not be competing in women's sports
trans woman.
Or whatever.
No, trans woman.
And
yep,
and we're going to have our own league for you if there's enough people to participate in it.
Well, there would not be because there are too few. But I mean, the whole point of a puberty blocker is to permit the child to relax and not worry and about the inevitable changes that come with puberty and not be terrified because the body is changing and there's nothing the child can do about it, and it's becoming a monstrosity that the child does not is wrong.
We went through puberty and we weren't monstrosities.
No, but you are comfortable. You're a man and you are cisgender. You're a man and you're a man and you're in the correct body. I shouldn't say even, but many Native American tribes, the Navajo, the Paiute, I had a Paiute student in one of my courses, not so long ago, and we were having a conversation on the phone, and I mentioned that I have a transgender family member. Oh, Two-Spirit. And the Navajo described the individual as, a male-bodied female and a female-bodied male. So the Native people understood that the individual on the outside, the biological appearance is not what matters. What matters is the person on the inside. But we're all excited about the person on the outside. I mean, if you were transgender, you would still have the same body, but you would know that you were female and you would be in deep distress because you would have to perform as a man, and people would look at you and they would see a man, and that would be wrong for you. you would see yourself as female, and you would not want to look in the mirror because what you would see is wrong. You would open your mouth, and what you would hear coming out would clash with how you understood your voice to be, and it would cause extreme distress and anxiety.
But this isn't for everybody.
No, this is for transgender people,
No,
which is
but
one reason why
all transgender people don't have this issue.
Yeah, they do, which is one reason. Yes, which is one reason why the suicide rate is about 4 times as high as for a regular teen.
Okay, the only thing is I see very difficult to think that every single transgender person has the same feeling, exactly the same.
As far as I know, yes. When the family is supportive and loving and embracing, and they know that the person knows that they are correctly gendered, and the family understands, and the treatment, which is as the child understands, if the child wants puberty blockers, they are available. Some people want sexual reassignment surgeries, some don't. Some people want puberty blockers, some don't. But I have talked with people who are terribly in distress. Their voice is wrong, their shoulders are too broad, they're too tall, this is wrong, that's wrong, hands are too large, they don't want to look in the mirror. I've also talked with people who have been in support groups where a lot of the members have not survived.
Well, okay. The only thing I can say is that puberty is not fun for anybody. I know I didn't enjoy it very much, but you know, it happens. And you know, and again, you could be very displeased with your appearance and things like that.
But this is very different.
You can be all that, but I mean, I understand the psychological thing about the whole thing. I get it. I truly do. But there has, you know, I this puberty blocker thing. I don't know. I don't know if I'd be all in on that. I really don't.
I mean, well, this is why you have to have a doctor who understands gender dysmorphia. It's body dysmorphia, and you have to you have to have physicians who understand what they're doing. You have to have a therapist. You know, the child has to be with a good medical doctor or set of medical doctors, and you know, you don't just get this willy-nilly with a minor child. It's prescribed, and the dosages are watched very carefully.
But you know, just to bring this back to our topic of politics from where you're taking it, which is interesting. Republicans aren't really known for their empathy.
Oh, they have none. No, which is why they say that
they need a family member, you know, for them to understand this, because they need to go through something before they'll admit that anybody else has any kind of problem or any kind of feelings one way or another.
Well, Elon Musk has a trans child, and he's rejected that child.
He's rejected the child, and he's just gone crazy with having other children. So no. According to Trump, this is you know, it's a made up thing, and with transgender, and it's a something that is cruel and unusual that Democrats have foisted on children, and no. It's not. I mean, the child will tell you that, you know, I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. Right. And if we could put it on a bumper sticker, it would probably make sense to more people, but we can't. And it's a complicated issue.
It is.
And complicated issues don't work well in politics. And when you find yourself explaining something to people, you're already losing the issue. And that's why these culture war issues don't work well for Democrats, always work well for Republicans, because they have no trouble just simplifying everything as greatly as they can, not dealing with any kind of nuance or anything like that. And therefore, the proper response, politically speaking, really just needs to be, it's a big world. There's plenty of space for everybody. Everybody is welcome. and
Yeah.
leave it at that, you know.
Exactly.
And when it comes to, joining sports and things like that, you can take these things on a case by case basis. Two students, high school students in Michigan, out of 170,000 students were transgender, you know.
Yeah.
It's really not a big issue when it comes to numbers, but it is a losing issue when it comes to it's too complicated for 3-word chants, which is how 49.7% or more of the country seems to deal with politics, and no
Right.
deeper than that.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And I think
think-
that I wasn't picking on you, Brooke. What I
No,
was
I
doing, what I
understand.
was doing is, that I'm a very big supporter of LGBTQ. But now you gave a very interesting, just, about all of the nuances of it. And Scott's right. And when you got into the nuances, like I said, I don't know about this, the puberty blocker thing. Not sure, don't know enough about it. Therefore, I'm not going to support it. But once you get into those kind of weeds, you
Mhm.
definitely lose the argument. Because then they say this is way too complicated for such a small group of people to actually have to worry about it. And that was really the point there. And again, I support the LGBTQ community always. But when you get into these, well, they're feeling this, well, they're doing that, that is where you lose the argument when you're talking to Republicans. That they're just going to shut off. They're just going to shut themselves off. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or a comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooke Van Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium offering social political issue solutions to NGOs and international government agencies through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research. The Phoenix Research Group is a division of the Phoenix Research Institute, the producer of the Nova Society podcast.